I went down, and Tyler Hansborough was stretching right in front of me. And I said, "What can I do for you fellas?" He said, "Give us the line from Happy Gilmore."
Huh.
So I put my hand, I knew what he wanted, and put my hand over my face and said, "Who the hell is Happy Gilmore?" And they all laughed. They won the national championship, and the ungrateful SOBs did not give me a shout out.
Beat Everyone is brought to you by Broadway Joe's Fantasy Sports, inspired by football legend Joe Namath. Embrace the thrill of daily fantasy sports like never before in a new app coming soon.
Hi, welcome to Beat Everyone. I am Ben Flanagan with AL.com, back with another edition of The Golden Age. We are joined by Mr. Eli Gold. And Eli, it's good to see you as always. We've had the pleasure to talk to a legendary sports broadcaster for several months now in this show, but rarely do we have the honor to have two on at once here as we welcome the great CBS broadcaster, someone that we in our audience have long watched and admired, the great Verne Lundquist. Mr. Lundquist, thank you so much for doing this today.
Ben, thank you. I appreciate the invitation, and I don't know this other guy very well at all. We're,
we've 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 been friend. Everybody is friends with Vern, but we really have meshed. We had Vern wrote the forward to one of my books. We've shared our faces on T-shirts and so on. And
you bet.
it's great to see you, my friend. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Eli. We're doing very well. We live full time in Steamboat Springs, but Nancy and I have a small condo in downtown Austin. So we've been in Austin since August, and we flew into New Jersey last Wednesday to film the sequel to a slapstick comedy called Happy Gilmore 2. And we did that on Thursday. And it was quite an adventure, I must tell you.
How was it? How'd it go?
Well, it was just great. Adam Sandler was there. He was not in the scenes that we shot.
Right.
But the fella who was with me in the original movie, his name is Jack Jarputo, and he's the guy who sat next to me. The story is that was a sudden inspiration by the director the morning of the shoot. He said, "Let's do an inside joke and have a little fun. Jack, I want you to sit next to Vern in every scene, but you cannot say a word because you're not a member of the Screen Actors Guild." So Jack, it turns out, was Adam Sandler's roommate at the New York University Film School. Well, now come forward to what, 27 years, whatever it is, and he's now the executive producer of all of Adam Sandler's movies. So
Really?
he and I were back on the set, and the first half of the movie was kind of I'm honor bound not to give too much away, but I think I can get away with this. Uh, uh, the first half of the movie is pretty standard Happy Gilmore fare, and every golfer of note, with the exception of Ben Crenshaw that you can think of, is in the movie. I mean, they shot all of those guys a week and a half ago, so I didn't get to see any of them. But Jack Nicklaus is in the movie. Nick Faldo. Wow, Lee Trevino again. No, Scotty Scheffler, Justin Thomas. Anyway, we were joined on the set, Eli and Ben, by a fella about whom I knew nothing until 2 weeks ago. But apparently, he's 29 years old. He is a huge star, was a hip hop artist, a rapper, and now sings country music. And his name is Post Malone. Look at Ben. Look at Ben. See, and I told my brother, who's only 6 years younger than I am, there's some guy named Post Malone who's going to be on the set. And my brother went, "Holy cow." And so I Googled him quickly, and he's a delightful guy. He really, really is. So we shot that. It was supposed to be a 5-hour shoot. It took about 7. And then went back to the hotel, and we drove into the city on Friday, and we've made full advantage of our time here. We went to see the movie Conclave on Friday night. We had dinner. Yeah, it's marvelous. Highly recommended. Uh, we had dinner with friends on Saturday. Last night, we went to see The Lion King for the third time. We had seen it originally on Broadway 25 years ago, and then we saw it in London. Nancy and I did. We were stuck in London for 5 days right after 9/11, then saw Lion King there, and saw it again last night. Thoroughly enjoyed it. And so tonight, we're going to Carnegie Hall and seeing the Berlin Philharmonic. So
Very nice.
we're doing the Spectrum, and then tomorrow
Do you
morning
go up
we'll be out.
Black Rock? Do you go up and see your old
No,
from
we drove by it,
Uh-huh.
and actually Black Rock is on 6th, and ABC is 1 block away, and I worked for both. And CBS has moved out of Black Rock now, and everybody is over on West 57th Street.
at the Broadcast Center?
Yeah, executive offices and all that. Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, Vern, may I stick with Happy Gilmore for just 1 second here? Not about the sequel so much, but I was going to ask you about this. I mean, you called the Masters, March Madness, the Olympics, Army-Navy games. Your credentials are truly second to none, but I was going to say it all must pale in comparison to playing yourself in a sports movie classic like Happy Gilmore. An incredible performance by you sharing the stern that amber. What do you remember about working on that movie?
Well, I'm still shocked that I'm still shocked that I didn't get an Oscar nomination for it. Uh, it breaks my heart, really. But I do remember we shot it in Vancouver, British Columbia, and the whole thing with Jack Jarputo was a sight gag, and why they chose to come to Now they did all of the golf action at a place called Fiddler's Elbow Golf Club, and then the shoot we were in on Thursday was in a city called Belleville, uh, probably 30 minutes south of Jersey City, and I must tell you the other thing. Um, the director, the full director, was with Adam Sandler. They were shooting in a different part of the location, uh, but the associate director, a, a young man named Ryan Howard, did our job. He directed us, and I've never worked with a better guy in my life. He was just terrific. Yeah, and it's so funny, Ben, when you asked about all the stuff I've been lucky enough to be a part of over my life. Yes, I get recognized because of Augusta and the SEC, but I get a lot of mentions about, hey, please give us the line from Happy Gilmore. There's a quick story about that.
Sure.
Back oh my gosh, how many years ago? I was doing a nationally an intersectional basketball contest, North Carolina at Arizona, and I was working with Billy Packer, and Roy Williams is the head coach at North Carolina, and he didn't want the media down at courtside because he would use a line or two that not fit for public consumption. Those days,
Yeah.
now I think you get away with it, but Billy and I and Bob Deacons, our producer, and Steve Milton, we were sitting halfway up in the stands, and a lanky redshirt freshman came up and he said, "Mr. Lundquist, the team was just post-practice exercising. The team would like you to come down and speak to them." I said, "You mean Billy Packer?" "No, they asked for you." So I went down, and Tyler Hansborough was stretching right in front of me, and I said, "What can I do for you fellas?" He said, "Give us the line from Happy Gilmore."
Huh.
So I put my hand, I knew what he wanted, and put my hand over my face and said, "Who the hell is Happy Gilmore?" And they all laughed. And I told them that if they'd won the national championship, I expected a shout out for the motivational speech that got them launched. They won the national championship, and the ungrateful SOBs did not give me a shout out.
Go figure.
Yeah, yeah.
Go figure. Uh, you have had, do you ever pinch yourself when you stop to think about the magnificent career you've had, the events you have seen, from the great athletes to the Nancy Kerrigan and all of that stuff and everything. Have you ever pinch yourself?
all the time,
Yeah,
all the
I bet.
it's just Eli, you know this better than I do, probably. I mean, you go to an event and you hope that something memorable will break out in front of you. And then with equal fervor, you hope that you can describe with adequate verbiage what the people had seen. And fortunately, I mean, I look back, I can't believe the number of things I've gotten to see, from Jack Nicklaus in '86 at Augusta to Tiger Woods in 2005, to Christian Waitner in '92, the Duke Kentucky game, to Nancy Kerrigan and Tanya Harding in Norway, and uh, more often than not, thank heaven, I think I have been capable of equaling the event with the proper amount of words.
Our business, though, is the same, but it's different because you, in many regards, have been so concise with your verbiage, putting a caption on a picture. I, on the other hand, have been far more verbose because it's radio. And
Exactly.
and it's we both have been lucky enough to get the job done, but I would think it'd be very difficult to come up with what you want to say with an economy of words that you have to deal with.
Well, you're a caption writer, a television, because uh, because there are 65 to 70 of the best technicians and production people in broadcast working with you. Uh, and so just shut up, for heaven's sakes. I promise you this. Uh, People say, well, what do you do on Saturday afternoons? I'm addicted to college football. So I sit at home and watch the games and yell at the announcers, just shut up. Please lay out. And too many of them don't. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, it becomes an addiction. I mean, gosh almighty. Uh, as if the late Frank Cherkinian said to me, we've got the best production and technical people in the world here. Your task is to complement and there is a huge difference in radio and television. Huge. And like all of us, uh, I think almost everybody in the television side started out in radio. I certainly did, and some choose to stay there. My dear friend, you're prime among them.
Yeah.
Brad Sham,
Sure.
with the Dallas Cowboys. He opted to stay in radio, and he's flourished in a career as you have. And but others of us wanted to test the waters, and and we did. And
I want to ask you about college football, right? Because, I mean, you called so many amazing games, so many amazing calls. I mean, we've pulled one story about Nick Saban after another from Eli on this show, and he's taken us behind the scenes. And, he was in the room for so much of that incredible era for Alabama football. But, you and your partner, Gary Danielson, basically had a second home in Bryant-Denny Stadium. I mean, y'all got a lot of FaceTime with Nick Saban throughout the years. What do you most remember about the time that you spent calling and knowing the former Alabama coach?
that he's a nicer guy than his public perception.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Exactly.
Eli really knows this, but uh, I happen to just adore Nick Saban. I really do. There's supposedly a line you're never supposed to cross it. Forget about it. Uh, and you're right, Ben. So many afternoons at Bryant Denny, and we always would meet with Nick at 11:30, and he would come in always dressed to the nines because at noon, Jeff Purinton, who is now the AD at Arkansas State, Jeff would pull Nick out of our meeting because he had to go to
To the luncheon.
what? Yeah,
Yeah. The Nick at New England. So I was the MC waiting for him to get finished with you guys to come and join us.
yeah, and I just Eli, I did his radio show, I don't know, 2 or 3 times on Thursdays.
Yes.
And I was always taken with the commercial breaks when he would go into the audience and graciously pose for selfies, sign every autograph, and then the producer would give him a 20-second heads up. He's back in the set, sits down, and you resume the conversation. I really liked him, man. And I was the last time I communicated with him was when Miss Terry was was the guest picker on game day.
Yeah.
And I sent Nick a note and I said, "Are you embarrassed that your wife humiliated you on the game day picks?" I mean, I first met Nick and we've had fun over the years reminiscing about this. My first ever college football telecast was in 1974, and it was Ohio University at Kent State. And Don James was the head coach at Kent State, and there was this graduate assistant named Nick Saban, who has told me, and Eli, I know you know the story, Ben, you might. Uh, his intention then, he was a GA, was to go back to Fairmont, West Virginia, and run his dad's gas station. And Miss Terry graduated, and Nick got the coaching bug and decided to stay in coaching. And I think he's been fairly successful.
Yeah, moderately so.
Yeah, like the greatest coach in all time of all time.
Yeah.
But the thing every chance I get, I spread the word that, listen, this is a really, really nice guy. And I know you're not surprised how seamlessly he's fit in
Oh,
on the game day crew.
it's been wonderful. And I said to him, we had talked and exchanged texts, and I said, "You're going to, in a nice way, embarrass them by your degree of preparedness." And
Yep.
indeed, that's the case.
Yep, absolutely it is.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, he's meticulously prepared,
Yeah.
but it shows. It shows. And I think the softer side of Nick, he's allowed that to emerge on the game day set. He's been an enormous contribution,
Yeah.
and he counterbalances certain other members of that panel. I didn't mention any names.
I hear you. I hear you. Hey, if I asked you for your most memorable broadcast, and I mean, there have been so many from Olympic Games to everything else, is there one that still to this day, and it may not even be one that you're famous for, but in your mind, is there one that stands out as your best effort, do you think?
Uh, oh gosh, probably Tiger in '05. Because I said what was on everybody's mind. I just reacted as a person sitting in their living room with,
Sure.
and his chip shot went in the hole, and I reacted as a fan. I said, "Hey, in your life, have you ever seen anything like that?" Because I never had, and I assume people at home never had. And so the Tiger stands out. Of course, Jack's win, his putt at 17 and 86, is memorable. And I know Jack and Barbara, Jack and Barbara much better than I know Tiger. I think it's probably generational, but I'll share with you this. I knew 2 years ago that this Augusta back in April was going to be my last. Uh,
Right.
Sean McManus, my boss, and I had decided I quit football in 2016. I gave up college basketball in 2017, and Sean very nicely asked me to be a part of the Augusta and the PGA for a while, PGA Championship, until this year because it was going to be my 40th. And I had 3 goals this year. I wanted to meet Scotty Scheffler. I never had. And I wanted to say hi to Jack. And thank him for making the putt at 17. And I wanted to thank Tiger. And Jack and Nancy and I were having lunch on the veranda at Augusta, a lawn, and Jack and Barbara happened to walk by. So the two of us left our lunch and went over to say hi to him. And Jack who's got an impish kind of sense of humor. He said, "Somebody take this with a cell phone." And he said, "Okay, on the count of 3, 2, 1, boom." And together, Jack and I went, "Yes, sir," which was great fun.
Yeah.
And then Tiger, at his press conference on Tuesday, Tiger had some very generous things to say about our relationship, mine and Tiger's. And so I bumped into his agent, Mark Steinberg, who's been his agent for, I don't know, 35 years. And I said, "Mark, if I'd love to say goodbye to him and thank him." And he said, "If he makes the cut, then on Sunday, be out at 16. The path from the 16 green to the 17th tee heads right by the flanker tower, camera
Right.
position." And so he made the cut. And on 15, I went out there and waited for him to finish at 16. He was 5 over par. He was having a horrible day. But when he came by, I just said, "Tiger," and he looked up and came over. And there are 2 shots of this scene. One was behind the Tiger and me, where you could see the handshake. And the other was taken from across the green, and it looked like Tiger shaking hands with a tree. And I mean, it's bizarre. And he went on Jimmy Kimmel's show, no, Jimmy Fallon, on Monday night after Augusta. And Fallon said, "What was you in the shaking hands with the tree?" I mean, and it was really, really funny.
That's
But I met Scheffler. I thanked Tiger and Jack. So, uh, and Nancy and I got a chance to enjoy that last year.
Did you have a sport that you had to do and knew absolutely nothing about prior to your cramming for that telecast?
Yeah. How about figure skating?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I had, at the time that we uh, in 1988, we received word that we had successfully negotiated for the rights to, at the time, 2 Olympic Games, Albertville, France, and Lillehammer, Norway. And so I was living in a ski resort, and our analyst on alpine skiing was Billy Kidd, who's still one of the more recognized alpine event
Sure.
competitors ever. So I naturally assumed that I would get to do the alpine event. I was really excited about it. And I got a call from New York, and they said, uh, "Excuse me, guys. Um, we got your assignment for France, Albertville, France. You're doing figure skating." And I said, "I'm doing what?" "Figure skating." And I was beside myself. And Nancy said, "Calm down, calm down. You love athleticism, you love music. This is a great combination of the two." And it turned out to be the case. But our first event, Scott Hamilton and I worked together on all 3: France, Lillehammer, and Nagano, Japan. And our first event ever was the European Championships in Leningrad, before it resumed to St. Petersburg, Leningrad, Russia, in 1990. So we had 2 years before our first Olympic Games. And Scott realized right away, that I didn't know squat about his sport. So, and we go to practice, and you get what they call a jump sheet, and it
Right.
shows the routines: skate, 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 jump, jump, skate, 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 backward skate, yada, yada, yada. And so Scott said, "Here's the deal. When they start," and David Michaels, who's Al Michaels' younger brother, was our producer.
Right.
And David knew I didn't know squat. He said, "Okay, here's your job. Introduce the skater, give me a biographical note early on, lay out, well, and then wrap it up at the end." Well, Scott knew we all have a proclivity to talk. So he said, "Here's the deal with us. When I reach over," and he always sat to my right, "when I reach over and put my right arm, right hand on your right forearm, that means just shut up." And we got through 3 Olympic Games like that.
Big.
Yeah.
You did great.
We were Nance and I were guests in Scott and his wife live in Nashville with their two kids, two sons, and we did a benefit with Scott for his foundation, Cancer Foundation, about a month ago in Nashville. So we got to see him then, and he's doing great. You know, he's had serious health problems, but he's doing well, very well.
Hey, Vern, I wanted to ask you again. I talked about your sort of like home away from home in Tuscaloosa. I wanted to ask you about the Alabama fan base, right? Like, I think a really cool moment that fans enjoyed came in 2016 when you served as the celebrity guest picker on College Game Day for Alabama's game against Texas A&M. And there's always been so much respect for the job that you do, calling so many memorable games, plays, moments with fans all over the world watching. What have you heard from Alabama fans over the years?
That I hate Alabama.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm in the tank for Auburn. Of course, I hear the same thing from Auburn fans. Why do you root for Alabama? I mean, I've said this many, many times. Once I did my first Iron Bowl, which would have been in 2000. I've never seen anything like the enmity between Alabama and Auburn. I mean, I've been lucky. I've done Ohio State, Michigan. I've done UCLA, UC. I've done Texas, Oklahoma, and Texas A&M in Texas. I have never seen anything uh, to adequately describe the hate between Alabama and Auburn. And we'd get on airplanes going to the South, and people would come on and by that time I had a fairly recognizable face, and someone come by and say, "Roll Tide," and then three guys behind him would say, "War Eagle." Well, what the heck do you think I'm supposed to?
Yeah.
What? Hook 'em horns? That's
But
that's the only out I had.
But if you get off the air and the Bama fans are ticked at you, and if they were playing LSU and the LSU fans are ticked at you, well, that means you've done a good job for the audience that you're dealing with.
You're right. You're doing something right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But uh, doing games at Bryant Denny or down in Auburn, I treasure those moments. I mean, honest to God. And of course, Alabama fans are not going to like this memory, but in 2013, we had back-to-back games. I mean, Georgia Auburn, and I love telling this story because it says something about the nature of our craft. Uh, uh, Georgia was leading, and Auburn had a fourth down and 18, fourth and 18, and Nick Marshall threw it up. Uh, Wide receiver named Ricardo Lewis was down there, and it was the ultimate Hail Mary. And two defenders for Georgia went up, and instead of knocking the ball down, they both went for the interception, tipped it forward, and Ricardo Lewis reached by and made a heck of a catch and went in for the score. So we do the on camera, and Gary says, "That's the greatest finish in all of college football. You will never, ever, ever see anything like that."
Until 2 weeks later. Yeah.
2 weeks. And of course, we all have memories that Alabama fans with terrible memories of what happened 2 weeks later. Uh, when Matt Austin was a referee, and T.J. Yeldon did or did not step out of bounds. You guys remember it well. Uh, and Matt Austin was the referee, and they asked us. Craig Silver, our producer, said, "Phil, they're trying to coordinate replays of the main game camera and the end zone camera to sync them up and decide whether there was a second left." And we had 7 minutes to wait, and Gary and I were filling that time. And finally, Craig said he's ready, and Matt Austin came on, said, "Please put 1 second back on the clock." And they did, and they sent the redshirt freshman out. And you guys remember vividly, Nick was really irritated with the senior place kicker. He'd missed 3 out of 4, had one block. So he sent the redshirt freshman on to try a 57-yarder, and we all remember what happened then. Uh, my favorite part of that, not that Alabama fans will like this, but uh, we showed it, and then uh, on the replay, Gary and I laid out. Steve Milton, the director, did the job of a symphony conductor. I mean, he was brilliant. Wide shot, close up, so on and so forth. And so then we only showed 2 replays, but and of course Alabama had the field goal protection team on the field. So on the final replay, here comes Chris Davis, boom, 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 and he's into the end zone. And as he about to cross into the end zone, Gary said, "Well, no wonder they couldn't catch him. They got nothing but fat guys on the field." And he was right. But yeah, anyway.
We have memories of that, Vern. Yes, but much of
Yes, Van, I bet you do.
11 years later, we've repressed those memories, but we appreciate, you reliving it, because great calls transcend any feelings fans might have over calls like that. But as we wrap up here, Vern, and you've been so generous with your time, my last question for you is, what do you miss about college football, calling college football?
Everything about it. I miss the preparation. I miss the experience of interacting with people I've grown to love and respect, like Nick, uh, uh, and to get to know them as people rather than just austere authority figures on the sideline. Uh, I miss. I don't miss the flying. You know, for most of the years that we did those games, Nancy and I were commuting from Steamboat Springs, Colorado, to the Southeast Conference. So let me tell you, there are no nonstop flights from Steamboat to Tuscaloosa.
Right.
So it was 9 hours, and we'd leave on Thursday, and we'd have to fly Steamboat, Denver, Denver, Atlanta, and then Atlanta wherever. And we did that for 10 of the first 17 years. And finally, my boss, Sean McManus, said, "Would it make your life any easier if we bought you rented a corporate apartment for you in Atlanta?" And I said, "Holy cow." And so for the last 7 years, we would pack our goods and we moved into a corporate apartment right on across from a couple of the malls in the Buckhead region of Atlanta. And then we decided anything under 4 hours we'll drive. So we always drove to Tuscaloosa, and we had I got to share a story with you about one of the trips we made to Tuscaloosa, and we would drive to Auburn, we would drive to Knoxville. Excuse me, guys. So we're driving back to our corporate apartment from Tuscaloosa, and the Tide had won the game, and so it's 4 hour drive, and we enjoyed. So we stop in for lunch at a Cracker Barrel in Oxford, Alabama, not far from Jacksonville State.
Right.
And so we go in and we collect coffee mugs, and we have them from every SEC school. So we didn't have Alabama, and we didn't have Auburn for some reason. So we take the 2 coffee mugs, and we're checking out of the restaurant. And the young lady behind the counter, she looked at us and she said, "Are these Christmas gifts, or y'all a split family?"
That's great. And that's the way people think down these parts.
Isn't it though?
Yes, that's
Isn't
the way
it
they
though?
think. Well, listen, I know we've kept you a good time here, but you are such a gentleman, and everybody knows you, and everybody loves you. You are just the nicest man, and Nancy is a wonderful lady. And I know you're getting ready to leave on another cruise to
We
meet
are.
beaches and so on. Have a wonderful time, and thank you so much. You've got a voice that means big game. When you turned on the TV and Vern was on, you knew it was a big game, and that's a magnificent legacy to carry on with you.
Eli, you are a dear and trusted friend.
Thank you, sir. God bless you.
Ben, good to meet you.
Vern, great to meet you, and thank you so much for doing this. You're a legend. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Beat Everyone is brought to you by Broadway Joe's Fantasy Sports, inspired by football legend Joe Namath. Embrace the thrill of daily fantasy sports like never before in a new app coming soon.